Greetings, my scattered brothers and sisters in the Lord. Trust you know the Lord is with you wherever you find yourself scattered today, and that you know that his presence with you is more than enough for whatever you might face today. We have one more session before we get into Philippians proper. We are still looking at the beginning of this church in Philippi, and the stories of this are in Acts chapter 16. That's where we find the account of Paul going to Philippi and the church getting started. We are working with the second half of chapter 16 today, and Paul finds himself in prison. The way he got there is that he and his group went out to the place of prayer where they had met Lydia, and there was a slave girl there who had this gift from God of divination, of being able to tell the future. And so her masters were using her to make lots of money telling fortunes. Well, she ended up following Paul and Silas and constantly telling people that these men were sent from the God Most High and that people needed to listen to them to be saved. And she was getting in the way of Paul and his ministry, kind of being a nuisance. And so finally, Paul just casts the unclean spirit out of her. And when her owners realized that they could no longer use this girl to make money as a fortune teller, then they are frustrated, angry, mad at Paul and Silas for what they just did. They drag Paul and Silas into the city and they start announcing to everybody that these men are Jews and that these men are advocating customs and teaching practices that go against Rome, that go against the Roman way. And of course, that's basically charging them with being against Rome, with being unpatriotic. And we remember that Philippi is a Roman colony. So everybody's in an uproar against Paul and Silas. They don't really get a trial, they just get arrested. And they're beaten harshly, and they are put into prison. And the jailer is commanded to guard them closely. And so the jailer puts them in stocks, and so that they are bound. And now it's the middle of the night, and Paul and Silas, they're singing, they're praising God. And the prisoners around them are also hearing about what God has done for Paul and Silas. They're testifying, and they're basically having a church service, a worship service in the middle of the night in the prison. And all of a sudden, there's an earthquake. And it's such a powerful earthquake that the prison is shaken to its foundations. And Paul and Silas are released from their stocks, and all the prisoners are released from their chains. The earthquake was so powerful. And strangely, none of them leave. Nobody escapes. The jailer wakes up and realizes that the prison doors are flung open, and he's about to kill himself, fall on his sword, because of the shame that he would have to endure that under his watch, everybody escaped. And Paul hollers out to him, "Don't do it. Don't kill yourself. We're all here." Not just Paul and Silas, but all the prisoners are there. The power of God, the presence of God must have been so great that nobody left, even when they were set free. Well, the jailer asks, "What must I do to be saved?" And Paul tells him, "You just need to believe in the name of the Lord Jesus." And he does. And Paul baptizes him and his family. In fact, the jailer invited Paul and Silas to come to his house. He bandaged up their wounds. He prepared a meal for them. He and his household were baptized. They became believers. I suspect another house church was started there. Well, morning came, and the magistrates, the city officials, sent leadership to the jailer to tell the jailer that he was free to let Paul and Silas go. And so he gives this news to Paul and Silas and blesses them. And Paul and Silas say to that delegation that came, "Wait a minute, we're Roman citizens, and you beat us without giving us a fair trial." And they are fearful now, the delegation. They take this news back to the magistrates, and Paul's demanding that the magistrates come and send them on his way. They have to face him when they didn't treat him fairly, especially as a Roman citizen. And remember again, Philippi, Roman colony, citizenship in Rome means everything to these people. Well, they come and they send Paul and Silas on their way. Paul and Silas go back to Lydia's house and greet everybody there, and then they are sent on their way in peace. Now, a lot we could talk about with this, but 3 quick points I want to make. First, I'm just so impressed with Paul and Silas that locked up in prison, middle of the night, when it would be very easy to be bitter, very easy to be angry, very easy to claim to your rights as a Roman citizen. What are they doing? They are singing and they are praising God. They are rejoicing in the Lord's salvation for them. Man, I need to be more like that. It's too easy to get bitter. It's too easy to get resentful. It's too easy to quit rejoicing. And I've never been to prison. And here's Paul and Silas in the worst of situations, rejoicing in the Lord. Quite the challenge. Second, as they rejoice in the Lord, the outcome is that other people are saved. The prisoners around them, the jailer, especially in his household. When we rejoice in the Lord in the midst of hard times, that becomes the most powerful testimony of all. Not just our words, but our actions. That here we are going through the worst of times, things that aren't right, things that aren't fair. But when we rejoice, then people are watching and they know that Jesus is for real because of the joy that we have. Again, I need to be more like Paul and Silas. Third thing, and this is kind of a puzzle, but I think maybe I'm getting it. Why did Paul and Silas wait until they were released before they played their citizenship card? When he was arrested and dragged into court, he could have been shouting out, "I got Roman citizenship." But he didn't. It wasn't until after they were letting him go that he let them know that what they did to him was just absolutely wrong as a Roman citizen. Why did he wait till then? I'm wondering if he waited till then in order to demonstrate that life isn't all about Roman citizenship. That knowing Jesus and belonging to Jesus and having a citizenship in heaven was far more important than Roman citizenship. And so he didn't bother to mention it because he wanted them to see that that's not what life is all about. But he mentioned it at the end to try to help them to realize not simply that they did him wrong, but to somehow shock them into having to ask that question themselves. Why didn't he tell us sooner? Maybe because Roman citizenship isn't what life is all about. Well, I don't know where you're scattered today, but wherever you are, I'm hoping, I'm praying that you and I, that we can rejoice in the Lord like Paul and Silas, and that we realize that life comes from God, not our citizenship or anything else we might have, but life, joy, hope, peace, it's all in the Lord. And I'm praying that you and I rejoice so well that those around us will see and they'll ask the question, what must we do to be saved? And we'll be able to tell them, believe in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Have a great day. Rejoice.